My name is Lorna Richardson. I'm a lecturer at Edinburgh University Law School, and as part of my role I look at consumer rights. And consumers in the UK benefit from a number of rights across a number of different parts of their life. So, for example, they have certain rights in relation to buying goods, they have rights in relation to obtaining goods and services online, consumer credit, unfair contract terms. So there are lots and lots of ways in which consumers have rights and redress and remedies that are different from others who buy goods or services. Lots of these rights emanate from the EU level. They, in a large part, have been incorporated into UK law by either Acts of Parliament or other domestic legislation. But a number of the rights, and certainly the development and the promulgation of consumer rights in the last 15 years in the UK have come from an EU level, have given new rights to consumers or have expanded upon rights that they already had in terms of UK law, have gone further and given them greater rights in specific areas. It's not possible to talk about all of the rights that consumers have. Consumers have rights in relation to a vast array of activities that they might undertake. So, for example, they have remedies in relation to faulty goods that they might buy from a trader, from a store. They also have rights when they buy online. They have rights in relation to certain contract terms that might be unfair. They have rights in relation to consumer credit and entering into certain loan agreements. But today I'm going to talk about a few of those rights which come up very regularly for consumers. One of the first areas that I want to mention is in relation to the sale of goods. When you buy something from a trader, when you go to a store and you buy an item from them, a washing machine, a pair of shoes, then you have certain rights as a consumer that other buyers don't have. Other buyers have rights, but you have additional rights that they do not have. And so consumers who have products, who buy products and they don't conform to the contract and that they are in some way faulty, they're not what they are entitled to expect, they are able to ask the trader to repair the goods or give them replacement goods so that they then comply with the contract that the consumer has entered into with the trader. Now, that means that consumers are obtaining the goods that they have paid for, that they wanted to get when they entered into this contract of sale with the trader. It seemed to be a useful route for a consumer to be able to go back and say, well, this isn't right and I want you to fix that. I want you to give me the thing that you were supposed to give me, either by repairing something that's faulty or replacing the item with something that's not faulty. And it's only when repair or replacement are impossible that, or are disproportionate in terms of cost to the trader, that the consumer can then seek a price reduction for the goods, saying, well, what you've given me is worth less than the price that I would have paid for goods that comply, or they can then seek to rescind, terminate the contract and obtain a refund. So the idea is to give consumers remedies to get them what they were looking for when they entered into the contract, rather than to say, well, I'm going to go somewhere else and I want my money back. Another area where consumers have significant rights, and very importantly now that more and more people are online, is in relation to e-commerce. And e-commerce deals with not just online transactions, any sort of transaction using electronic means whereby the parties communicate and enter into contracts, but online would be a very typical example where you shop, for example, online. And the rights that consumers have are in a number of different headings, if you like. So they have to receive information about the goods and also about the trader. They have to know who it is they're entering into the contract with, so that they can be confident that someone's not hiding behind a domain name or a website, that they know who it is. If there's a problem, that they can then get access to that corporate entity or that person. There are also requirements in terms of letting a consumer know exactly when it is that they're going to be bound by the contract, being very clear that you have to go through various stages until there then is a contract between you and the trader. And importantly, when it is before that stage that there isn't a contract, and being clear to the consumer that when you press this button, for example, you will come under an obligation to pay and you will be bound by the contract. And Additionally, consumers have a 14-day cancellation right. When you buy online, you can get the goods, you can look at the goods, they might not be faulty, there doesn't have to be a problem with the goods in order to exercise the cancellation right. It can simply be that the goods are not quite what you anticipated that they would be, or that you've changed your mind about it. So a very important right that's available to consumers is this right to cancel the contract without any financial penalty and without giving any reason. In the UK, consumer credit has been something that's been regulated for some time when the Consumer Credit Act came into force, and so there have been domestic protections that have originated within the United Kingdom for those who are seeking credit, those consumers who are looking to enter into a loan, for example. But significant developments have taken place at an EU level that are now making their way into domestic UK legislation for the benefit of consumers. Importantly, the consumer for certain credit agreements has, again, a 14-day right to cancel. So they enter into the contract, they are supposed to receive the money, they're going to have to make payments in terms of the agreement, yet they've decided after entering into it that actually this isn't for them, then they are entitled to, again, without financial penalty, to cancel. Also, a consumer might, after entering into the loan, realise that their financial position is better, and so they can repay before the end term of the loan, they can repay early. And the early repayment would quite often result in a financial penalty to the consumer. They would have to pay something extra to pay back early. And recent changes at EU level, again, have been now brought into domestic legislation, mean that there is a cap on exactly what it is that the lender can take from the consumer in terms of an early repayment figure. So what does this mean for consumers post-Brexit? Well, I think it's important to make clear that the vast majority of consumer rights have made their way into domestic or national legislation. So it will be a UK Act of Parliament or some other domestic legislation that makes these rights available to consumers, and to that extent Brexit will not make any changes. The domestic legislation will still be there. There are, however, some areas where there is EU directly applicable legislation, and that will go following Brexit unless, as the government have intimated, they then make domestic legislation to keep the status quo. But what consumers will lose out on, if you like, or not be a part of, are developments going forward. And there are initiatives at the EU level in relation to the digital marketplace, the single digital marketplace, and cross-border trade, so online and cross-border consumer rights, a major focus for the Commission. There have been new proposals for legislation. They are not yet European law. If these come in post-Brexit, then they will not be implemented into the United Kingdom unless the UK decides to follow the European rules on a voluntary basis. And so nothing will necessarily immediately change for consumers, but going forward, the discussions, the developments and the initiatives at a European level will no longer immediately or automatically form part of UK law, and that's where the UK will start to differ and move away from its European neighbours.